Cheech, thank you so much for making the time today. We really appreciate it, man.
It's my pleasure. It gives me 3 months off my parole.
There you go. I got to get those perks, right? Now, obviously, man, there's been so much exciting stuff. But before we jump in, I just have to say, I do have the book here. And I just wanted
Oh,
to tell you, man, this book is one of the most incredible art books. And of course, signed.
of
You
course.
know what I mean? What can you tell the people maybe who haven't seen Chicanitas? Because this is, of course, a collection of small paintings from the Cheech
Yeah.
collection.
Well, when I had this collection, I started touring it as soon as I could, because that's what everybody said I should do. Easier said than done.
Right.
Um, so when I finally got it on the road, we did the first tour of Chicano Visions, which was 14 major museums in 7 years, starting from the Smithsonian and all those uh, museums around that area. And so when I was looking to how to kind of break it into smaller pieces so it could go to smaller museums because there was not a such a long lead time to get it, like to get into a major museum like LACMA or De Young or any of those. It's years,
Yeah, I can imagine.
and so the smaller museums you can get in there, So how do I do that? So I started doing smaller views of the collection, and small paintings was one of the sections. And so because when I went to the National Museum in Washington, which I go to every time I'm in Washington D.C., I was in there one time, and there was a room full of these small paintings, and it was packed, and everybody, I mean, they seemed to really care about them.
Hmm.
So I went back the next day because I usually go for a couple of days, and I saw the same people in the
Yeah.
room with the small paintings. I said, so there's some allure to this, and so I put this together, absolutely there is something about small paintings that people collect, and they become their favorite arts works of art.
No question. I mean, when did this journey start for you with the art? I mean, was this a lifelong passion or did this come later in life?
Well, it was when I was in prison,
Okay.
not nothing to do there. No,
Yeah, there you go. I was gonna say.
no, it started very early at a very early age. I had this group of cousins. I went to Catholic school, and we, kind of liberal arts educated. And the head cousin Louis decided that we'd all take basically master classes, and he would assign the
Hmm.
topics.
Oh,
Said we'd all learn about those topics and bring that back to the group, and we learned. So I was assigned art. It's just, I don't know, he just kind of randomly pointed to me, okay, Cheech, you get art. So how do you do that? You go to the library and take out
right.
all the art books. And so I looked from age I think I was around 11 when that started. So I was fascinated. I go to the library and take out these beautiful art books,
Yeah.
and then I started going to museums live at the same time, because they told me that, well, you have to see paintings live.
Yeah.
You can that's the best. So I started doing this, became a lifelong process. And so then I started, and I was always a collector of something all my life:
Okay.
baseball cards, buttons, and anything. And so that process started taking over. And then when I got enough money to start to buy art, and that's when I started finding the Chicano artists, and it was perfect. At the time, it
Yeah.
was I was looking for something to do, and here was a school of art that was really basically undiscovered,
Hmm.
and it spoke to me. It was about my culture, and so it was an easy thing to collect, and so I started doing that, and being an inveterate collector. It doesn't really have an end. You just kind of
Yeah.
die, I think.
Well, that's the thing, right? Yeah, it ends eventually, but maybe not the way we want it to, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's fascinating though. So you grew up in South Central LA, correct?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So,
Half in South Central and half in Granada Hills, which is the San Fernando Valley, which
okay.
is a suburb. Back in the olden days when it was just orange groves, we moved out there, and it was just it was just this new subdivision and orange groves.
So what was it like there? Was there a lot of like Chicano sort of art in that area or not exactly?
No, not
Yeah,
exactly.
I wouldn't imagine.
There was everybody that could were fleeing the cities for the suburbs, the
Right.
in the cities. And it was interesting because like one day in my neighborhood everybody was black, and then the next day everybody was white.
Right.
So how did this work?
Yeah. Seriously, a
So you
big
learn how to
switch.
get along with a lot of different groups at the same time, and I was always the little Chicano kid in both neighborhoods. So, you learn to navigate, and you learn how to, kind of make people laugh or, ingratiate yourself to them some ways. And so that was kind of a way to do it. I was always funny. So if I could make people laugh, it was easier to get along. So.
Yeah. Did you consciously start trying to like make jokes, or were you just a funny guy?
I came from a funny family.
Okay.
All my cousins and aunts and uncles, everybody was funny, man. You had to be really quick witted to get any time at the dinner table, man.
It was
And
like
you
an
had
open
to have
mic.
yeah, exactly. You had to have your shit together, man. You had to have a tight 3 minutes, that you could you could get out there and but it was I grew up in that environment. Everybody was and smart, very very quick witted.
Yeah.
And it was the little group that I was in. There was four of us, and my older cousin Louis, who was the genius of all time. He got a scholarship to grade school.
Oh, really?
And
Is
really,
that serious?
yeah, seriously, yeah. And then every other school he ever went to,
Wow.
it was I can't Los Angeles diocese, and then we gave out, I think, 5 scholarships in the whole Los Angeles Archdiocese, and he got one of them.
No
I think it
kidding.
was yeah, he was in third grade or fourth grade or
That's
something.
insane.
And they paid for the rest of it. And then he got a scholarship to high school. And then he got a college. He was a state scholar,
Wow.
and then he got a scholarship to the University of Tokyo and all. So all those, things. And so it was this like intellectual group,
Hmm.
that we what he really taught us too is the love of learning.
Right.
And once you learn that, everything is interesting. So
Yeah.
there was four of us, and Louis was my cousin was the genius, and then the next one down, his sister Lolly, who became a very high up in her order of nuns, because
Ooh.
that's what we were all pointed to do, be priests and nuns. And then so she went off to the convent, and she was a nun for 30 years. And then Louis went to the junior seminary, and then he kind of quit halfway through. Maybe it wasn't for him. But then the other cousin, Regine, went to the seminary too,
Hmm.
and he was and after the junior seminary, he quit and went on and he got a scholarship to Harvard University,
Wow.
where eventually became the recipient of the first first what do they call it? A degree in Chicano, a doctorate in
Oh,
Chicano
wow.
studies. And
No
he was the
kidding.
first one to ever get a doctorate in Chicano studies from Harvard. And then there was me, who was like the little puppy, trying to catch up with everybody.
So you were
But
hanging with a good crowd, but you were still trying to find your way.
yeah, fast, and they were fast and smart and
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
So that's how I grew up.
How exactly did you sort of carve out your own lane? Like, because you've done so many different things throughout your career. I feel like everybody knows you for something different. So how did you really
Yeah,
get it
isn't
get
that
it
weird?
going? Yeah.
It's just because I was always interested in learning. What's the next thing? Every new subject kind of intrigued me. And that I was a collector was of baseball cards, marbles, buttons. Had that propensity to collect stuff.
Yeah.
But how do I was just interested. And once you learn that this group taught me the love of learning. Once you learn how to learn how to love learning, you can learn anything, and everything is fascinating and interesting. So I just kind of kept that up.
That's amazing. I mean, speaking of learning as well, obviously you learned a lot about Mezcal. And
Yeah.
that's something that's of course very big in the Cheech brand. Of course, Tres Papalote.
Yeah.
That was actually the first Mezcal I've ever got the opportunity to try. I
Really?
mean, an incredible drink, man. Yeah, in Canada, it's like I think a little, niche, but I think it's
Yeah.
obviously we're bringing it to Canada now and making it bigger. So, what can you tell us about the product?
Well, I always saw it, because in the bottles it always had a leak, like a worm in it, that
Yeah,
kind of early mezcal or some, snake or something, and and I was too little to kind of try it, but it looked nasty, but mezcal was always around. So finally, when I did try it for the first time, I think it was like in 20 or something like that, and I go, this is interesting taste. It's really smoky.
yeah,
It's not tequila. It's kind of like tequila, but it's not. And so cut to many years later, I was asked by this one guy who saw me, and he said he had this beverage company, and he said, Would you want to do some wine?" I said, "No, there's too many wine. Want to do a tequila? No, there's everybody's doing a tequila." I said, "How about mezcal?" I said, "What's
bingo.
mezcal?" And so nobody really, it wasn't a big deal so we started. Well, it's a brand new field. Let's go do it. And so you have to kind of educate the public about mezcal in general, not just your brand specifically,
Mhm.
So and so we started on that process, and now it slowly but surely, all of a sudden, it's catching on, that particular brand, and then not everybody, but more people are having mezcal. So there's mezcal's bars popping up all over, and so maybe we're on the right path, I think.
I would say so, absolutely. And I mean, one of the coolest things about the brand as well is you have three expressions of Tres Papalote. Of
Mhm.
course, three different labels, different images and artists. What can you tell us about those different variations?
The variations has to do with the type of agave they use.
Okay.
One's Espadín and one's Cupreada and Mexicano. They have those three different tastes, just like bourbons have a lot of different bourbons. They're still bourbon, and you can use it in a lot of different ways. Because I prefer mezcal as a mixed drink.
Oh, you
You know,
do? What do you
yeah,
mix it with?
everything. Right?
Nice.
And it's because it's a very sophisticated taste
Mhm.
because of the smokiness of it, and there's a lot of it combines really well with vermouth.
Ooh, I could see that for sure.
You would never think that, but all those kind of sophisticated vermouth drinks really taste really good with a mezcal, and you can keep combining it. A lot of people use pineapple, fruit juices, kind of tropical thing,
Yeah.
and they're good. But I like that vermouth taste with it.
Well, it's got again the smokiness, almost like a vegetable thing on the nose a little bit, like just all those really nice hints. So it definitely, yeah, it's going to lend to different mixes.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know,
some people think you just take shot after shot after. Well, you
right.
can, but
Yeah, it works, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, it works quickly. But I like that smoothness of it, the fact that it can combine with a lot of different things.
No question. Is it hard for you to pick, Cheech, who you want to partner with when it comes to products? Because I mean, everything from Cheech and Chong to your solo stuff, the merchandising is off the chain. But I would imagine there's more things you guys have to say no to than you can do.
That's true. Because what you do is if people come up to you with a proposition and have a product they want you, and you really have to check out the product. Because my motto has always been, since we started this thing, is the motto is it will always be good. It might not always be the same, but it'll always be good if you see our name on it.
Yeah.
So you can be in Kansas or you could be in Connecticut. If you see our name on the product, you can try it.
And you have to maintain that standard, right? Because that's very
Yeah,
easy to lose.
I think, yeah, and if you maintain it and it's also easy for people to grab onto if they like it, and it's good. Oh. So
Yeah,
if it'll always be good,
that's
you just
true.
brand trust, I guess it's called.
Are you surprised in any way, or maybe not surprised, but how does it feel, I guess, for you to see, what you guys have done being, respected and continued for so long by all these brands and all these people?
It's amazing. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is amazing, that because the hints of it were there when we very first started, we appealed to everybody. We would see
Yeah.
families always come, with their kids, and the father and the mother, they were involved. They liked it. They watched the movies together. They took cross country trips together, listening to our tapes, and blah, 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 But it was always a family. That's we used to say is we make the only true family movies, because you have to take your family in order to get in to see it.
That's true. Yeah. At a certain age, that's the only way you're getting in.
Yeah,
Oh my
exactly.
gosh.
So we always come, and it is amazing. We have a certain feel to our work that really appeals to everybody at the same work at the same time, young and old, and they both
Yeah.
kind of get the joke. So lucky that way, I guess.
No question. I mean, when you first teamed up with Tommy Chong, I mean, how long exactly did it take? Like, did you guys start doing comedy that wasn't Cheech and Chong at first? And how
Oh
long did
yeah,
it take to form? You did, right? Yeah.
yeah. I met Tommy in Vancouver. And he was always a musician all his life, was with Motown for many years. His had a band, was the first mixed band ever signed to Motown. He wrote a big hit for it, Does Your Mama Know About Me? And
Yeah.
and all those things. So and I was a musician all my life too, since I was a little kid. And so when I first met him, he had seen improv theater in his days on the road in Chicago, the Second City, in San Francisco, the Committee, and other groups. And so when he finished with his deal with Motown, he decided that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to do improv theater. Never had spoken on stage before. I mean, he was a
Wow.
guitar player.
Ambitious.
Yeah, but that's what he wanted to do. So when he got back to Vancouver after his parents had been entrusted to he left him with this nightclub to run in his absence, and they had turned it into Vancouver's first topless bar.
Oh, wow. There you
And
go.
it was in Chinatown in Vancouver, real rough section,
Yeah. Still today,
really.
right?
Still, oh yeah, it's probably even rougher too.
Yeah.
Well, Vancouver has a reputation for a lot of things. It was always a Chinese port. Canada always had a relationship with Red China during the days,
Yeah.
so it was the big heroin entree in Vancouver. So Vancouver was known for that, and so it was a tough neighborhood, and so he's running this. He decided to turn the topless bar into an improv theater, but still keep the topless element. So it was
There you go.
improv, In effect, what we were doing is, I kind of realized later, what we were doing was hippie burlesque. It was classic burlesque, comedians and strippers.
That's interesting, though.
That is exactly the recipe of burlesque. Lenny Bruce came out of that. A lot of other guys came out of that. But that's what we were doing. But but the comedy element was improv comedy that we started to do with the strippers. And Tommy went to the dancers and he said, "Okay, girls, you're not strippers anymore. Oh, no, you're actresses. Oh, okay. So you get paid less, but you're."
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got to adjust the pay grade too.
So you can't afford clothes, so we'll do without the clothes.
Yeah, costume department's cheaper.
It is. You can get a G-string, man. That's it. And so we had this weird hybrid of down home strip bar and this improv comedy that's at the same time. And so we started attracting an audience.
Of course.
Yeah, because it was a tough audience at first. It was loggers and bikers, and it was a tough crowd. They were the only thing we were afraid of is because they are always trying to get up on the stage and beat us up.
Really?
Yeah, because hey, I'm supposed to be naked girls. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, who's these guys
talking to us? What the fuck? And so they sometimes get pissed off, and all of a sudden, because bikers aren't the easiest ones to make laugh.
That's true. Not a notorious reputation for that.
Sense of humor. And so all of a sudden we started doing that, and then all of a sudden we got reviewed by the Vancouver Sun, the big newspaper, and he didn't much like us, but he appreciated what we were trying to do. So then we started drawing on audience, and boom, 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 and then of course at the certain point, the rest of the group quit to go to the hills and get their head together, I guess. And into the hills. My head was together, my
Right.
pocketbook was together. So it was just me and Tommy, and we decided, well, what do we do? Well, have a duo, but you're a singer and I'm a guitar player. We'll have a band and we'll be like a lounge act. We could
Mm,
maybe play Vegas or something like that. So we
right.
started doing that. So we had to go to either New York or LA. There's the two places you go.
Yep.
And I was from LA, so I knew that. The only fly in the ointment is that I was wanted by the FBI at the time, and
Really?
so yeah, I was a little dicey because of my draft situation. I was a member of the
Oh,
draft
right.
resistance movement in those days, and we did a lot of things that they didn't like. And everything we did, they didn't like, and
Right.
and so they were after us, And so I'd gone to Canada, not necessarily to avoid the draft, but to be a potter. At my
Really
last, yeah, my last semester in college, I discovered pottery, and that was my life's calling. I quit everything else,
interesting.
and I was going to be a potter in the woods. So that's what I went to Canada to do. At the same time, I was waiting for my draft status to unravel or be foretold or whatever it was. And so
Wow.
that's when I met Tommy, and then we had to come back.
Did
So
that cause trouble for you guys, like to get started?
no, no, because I came back to the United States. Okay, when I went there, it was good. I became a landed immigrant in Canada. I
Nice.
was a regular. I was an authorized citizen, and worked there, and I could get a job and everything. When I came back, the FBI was still looking for, because in the interim I had gotten drafted, but I didn't show up because I was
Hmm.
waiting. Because it was a First Amendment issue, really clearly, and it was going to be overturned. That's what we all thought, and
Right.
and so we were waiting for that. But I wasn't going to spend 8 years in Leavenworth waiting for them to find out I was right in the end. So
Yeah.
when I went there, and so when we came back, like I came back with a phony ID. My friend, his driver's license,
Okay.
his name, with his picture on it.
His picture?
His picture.
That's amazing.
And he held it up. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, okay, go ahead. And he came
Yeah,
back.
go ahead, buddy.
So they didn't have computers in those days, nothing
Right.
like cell phones or anything. You
It was
could look
easier, I
up.
guess, to a degree.
Yeah, it was like, all right, go ahead. You
Yeah.
know, and I gave him some story, and he bought it, and I was back. So I was weird. So we were back in LA trying to, break in or be discovered or do something to be discovered for. And about 6 months later, my case went to the circuit court. I think it was the Sixth Circuit, or I can't remember which, and it got thrown out, which
Wow.
we knew it
You
would.
predicted it, right?
We predicted it,
I
yeah.
told you so moment.
Yeah, I was now free and clear of the draft. So that week I got another notice from the draft board to report for physical again,
Oh boy.
because now I was back on their radar, and they're going to draft me again.
Oh my gosh.
And so I goes, oh. And so luckily or unluckily, I had broken my leg skiing in Canada very badly. And it was
Ooh.
a compound fractures, like a like a 7,
Wow.
and I failed a physical, and then I
No
was,
kidding.
yeah, lucky break, huh?
You've had an
And then
insane life, man. Like
I know, it's just,
this
everything
is
is
this is
supposed to happen.
fascinating.
It's supposed to happen. And so I've always counted on that too. And it has to do with intuition. When you see something that you should be doing, or something
Mhm.
that's an opportunity, or something very clear, you have to make a split-second decision to go through that door. A lot of
Yeah.
people, don't go through the door, and they miss some golden opportunities in life. And I was never one of those guys. If I saw an opportunity that presented itself to me, I make, and that's why you have to kind of always sharpen your intuition.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah,
that's what's going to save you in a lot of situations. It's animal instinct, but intellectual as well. So I did
that's
that,
true.
and got him, and we started going around. We got discovered by Lou Adler, and made a record, and they, you know, that was a big deal. And then we made a bunch of records and won Grammys, and
Yeah.
toured, and then we did movies. So just
How did you guys? I mean, how did you guys think to include the cannabis element into it? Because it seems to me that most people who've done that since they thought of it from you.
yeah. Well, we were the first ones that kind of made it like really blatant.
Yeah, like
You
I
know,
can't imagine how hard it was to do.
it wasn't really. I mean, it
Okay,
really was because that was what everything around us was. Everybody was smoking. It was the hippie era, the burgeoning
right.
of the hippie era. The hippies were out there, beads, bells, incense, smoke dope, do acid in the park, and it was going on everywhere in plain sight. It was, and
Hmm.
so we just kind of reflected the society that we saw all around us.
Wow. So it wasn't necessarily like hard to get like the studios on board then because it was representing a real part of life.
Oh, they had no fucking idea what we were doing, you
Oh,
know.
okay. So you just said we're making a movie.
Yeah, we just were making a movie. Okay, they didn't understand us when we were doing our records and concerts, but Adler did. Lou Adler did because he was from East LA. He was from Boyle
Right.
Heights. He grew up, so he knew that whole culture and everything. And so he understood exactly what we were doing. The important part about Louis is that he was an incredible promoter,
Hmm.
and he
Yeah.
came up with how to promote different things. I mean, he had Johnny Rivers, the Mamas and Papas, Carole King.
Yeah.
When we first joined Lou's label, he was just releasing Tapestry by
Hmm.
Carole King, which went on to sell 15 million albums, which
A copy or two.
a copy or I mean, it was like it broke the whole industry wide open,
Man.
so we were on that label, so it was good.
What was the process like in the studio while making you guys' albums? Because I mean, obviously when we listen, we're picturing you guys in scenarios, but that's clearly not what was happening.
Well, yeah, it was because we were different than all our contemporaries, like say George Carlin or Richard Pryor or Lily Tomlin, who made records, comedy records. What their comedy records consisted of was a recording of their live act.
Yeah.
That's what's their album. It's Steve Martin, everybody, George Carlin, and ours records consisted of scenarios that we would create in the studio without an audience, and with
Okay.
just sound effects and different things going on at the same time. So it was kind of like early radio theater for us. So
Yeah.
we started doing that, but it was in the advent of multi-tracking, which is when we first got in the studio, they had 4 tracks, and that was a big
Right.
deal. You got 4 tracks, you got a background, you have a bass track, very quickly in the process between our first and second album, it had expanded to 32 tracks, that
Wow.
you could, so you could put a lot of different sound effects and about
Yeah.
this voices, and we do all the voices, and we recorded our own sound effects, so it was like in the studio, it was a like a, I don't know how to say, you could try anything, and
Yeah.
and and work it out, and it worked really well because we were doing, and it was in the days of when headphones start first coming. So you're
Right.
really involved in the whole thing.
Yeah.
You control the pans from left to right and the voices in the background. And so it was like we were very different.
You
And we
must have
were
been.
talking about weed.
Yeah. And you were talking about weed. I mean, it must
Yeah.
have been super encouraging too when the Grammys started becoming involved. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah. I mean, we got nominated for a Grammy for every album we made.
Wow.
We should have won a lot more than we did, but
Yeah.
but we were always there. And then and touring, we do. I mean, we sold a lot of records, and our other competition wasn't other comedians. It was like Led Zeppelin,
Yeah.
Rolling Stones. That was our competition. That anybody that sold records, and we did very well.
What do you
We had
think that
three number
is?
one albums in a row
That's unbelievable. I mean,
against that competition.
yeah. What do you think that was? Like, it was so hand in hand with rock and roll. Why do you think that
Yeah,
is? Was it just you guys' spirit?
yeah, absolutely. Because we were rock and rollers. Tommy was there at the beginning of rock and roll, with Chuck Berry and
Yeah.
Elvis Presley and the blues before that even. And I was always a rock and roller, and so it was just it was perfect. We were musicians really all our lives, but we employed musicians' humor,
Right.
which is it's a very different thing than, hey,
Yes.
I went into the bar the other day and I saw this. No, it's musicians like little situational humor, and so because that's who we were, and everybody kind of responded to that. It was incredible.
Do you guys think you did better from like just sort of on paper from the movies or from the CDs or the
Uh,
albums?
what do you mean better? Define better.
I don't know, in terms of, I guess, revenue, in terms of sales.
They were equal. Actually, in our situation, they were equal.
Yeah.
We won the NARM award for records, which is National Association of Record Merchandisers, which means who sold the most albums that year. We won
Right.
that 4 or 5 years in a row over everybody.
Wow.
And then so with movies, obviously it was the same thing, big blockbuster hits that who would the fuck would expect. So we did very well, and everybody kind of thought we were still unknown. They knew us, but nobody else did because it's our secret. But everybody,
Right. It
you
was
don't
like
get
a
to have
little
number
secret,
one.
right?
Yeah, but you don't get to have a number one album by being a little secret. So we had it both ways. We had our cake and they were eating it too. So it was cool. With this underground hit that was explosively sellers, big sellers. So how do you figure that? I don't know.
So legendary, man. It's unbelievable. Of
Yeah,
course, to wrap up here, I just wanted to ask you about, of course, the Cheech Marin Center for Chicano Art and Culture of the Riverside Art Museum.
yeah.
Just wanted to hear about that because we touched on it in the beginning. This is like your magnum opus, really, for
Oh
art.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I started collecting this Chicano art in about mid-'80s, and it was three things. I knew what the art was because I'd been studying art all my life, and I saw how they were combining the Chicano community and that aesthetic with what they had learned in college. Kind of
Yeah.
because all these artists that I was collecting were either art school and or university trained. They weren't
Yeah.
like backyard hobbyists. They were serious artists, and so. I knew I saw what they were doing, how they were combining different art forms and different mediums and different things at the same time, and I saw this is an interest. This is rock and roll. This is how rock and roll was born.
Yeah.
Adding different elements, and I had money to collect it, which was really important. You can have
Yes.
all the theory in the world you want if you don't got no money. So I had money to collect it, and so and then I had a celebrity in order to proselytize for it. So I went on
Hmm.
the road and I said, hey, there's this new thing over here. You should check it out. All those elements combined. So I started touring this collection. I kept collecting. I'm still collecting over the years and then touring it, in different places. And then when it came to the end, like all collectors, and what do I do with this collection? I can't keep it under the bed anymore or in the
Yeah.
closet. So at that very same time, I was wondering, what am I going to do? I got this offer from Riverside Museum that they had this building that they needed to repurpose. It was a beautiful mid-century building. It was a town library.
Wow.
And they're going to build a new library down the street, kind of was Jetson's library, that you see library. And they needed to repurpose that. And long story short, they said, I had just done a show there of works on paper. It was the biggest show they ever had. How about if we offered Cheech the museum for the collection, and they'll
Wow.
put the collection there, and it like fell from the sky. The answer fell from the sky, and that's where intuition comes in,
Yes. Yes. We take it
because you
full
have to make
circle,
it.
right?
You have to make a decision. Do I give them the collection?
Mm.
And that was always the purpose, to give them, because it is the Chicano community had supported me in everything I ever did.
Yeah.
Whether it was It was records or concerts or movies or whatever I did. So this was my gift back to them for
Yeah.
the support, and that should be that way, and I wanted it to be that way. So it was like all of a sudden it fell from the sky, and we were a huge fucking right from the. We've been open a little over a year, and the first 6 months we were voted one of the top 50 shows in the world for that
Wow.
year.
That is amazing.
That is a fucking
In the
amazing.
whole world. Yeah. No shit. That's amazing.
World. And all over. I mean, the first one was the I can't remember the Donatello show in Florence.
Right. Holy stiff
guys,
competition, man.
They're hard, statues that nobody had seen in 150 years that they hauled out of, the Vatican. And so, anyways, so now it's going really good, and we're just continuing to build up and how to spread out of the categories that we're involved in, because it's a cultural center as well. The next thing we're going to focus on is the film department of the center.
Nice.
Robert Rodriguez has agreed to come and kind of head the whole thing and establish his program there of how to make a film with $7,000.
Amazing.
It is what he basically teaches you to do is every job in the movie making process.
Right.
The director, the writer, the grip, the caterer, the cinematographer, all those things. So we're going to start that program at the Cheech very soon.
And we'll get some strippers, so we'll take out the costume department, right?
I haven't brought that up yet, but
okay, there you go.
But I think we can sneak it in on it's art now.
Exactly.
Living theater.
That is incredible, man. Well, listen, we're going to put the links for everybody to go check it out down below. Of course, a ton of our viewers, I'm sure, will be interested, and also for Tres Papalote Mezcal.
Yeah. Try it with I don't know where you have to go to. We have a little book with all the cocktails. Go to our website and we'll do that.
We'll put all those links down below. Cheech, thank you so much for your time, man. It's honestly an honor.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Go to the Oxnard, or go to Riverside and see the Cheech while you're drinking Tres Papalote.
That's right. Have a little cocktail first.